Hey, welcome back to Carl Travels. My name is Carl, or Carl Tomich, and I want to tell you a bit about navigating the Croatian migration system. So, I have recently been in the process of getting my Croatian citizenship because I come from Croatian descent. And maybe you do too, and that's why you're watching this video. And this video is specifically for, well, technically anyone, because I'm dealing with the Croatian embassy, and no matter where you are in the world, you'll be dealing with that Croatian embassy or that Croatian consulate, and so on and so on. Now, I happen to be based in Australia, and it was my grandfather who moved from Korčula, former Yugoslavia, to Croatia, to New Zealand, and along with his father. Originally, for a long time, my family couldn't find any actual information on my grandfather, and that made this very difficult. And the reason being was because, well, one, he changed his name. A lot of people wanted to do this, especially back then, moving to countries like Australia or New Zealand, and you want to adapt more to the culture, have people actually be able to pronounce your name properly, so we added a H on the end. But he didn't do that legally. I think he just, like, when he shipped off to war, what's your name? My name's James. When his actual name was Yakov. Anyway, so I was trying to find records of him on the internet. I have used websites like Ancestry or Genie, and they can be really helpful. Now, what I ended up doing was finding the record for my great-grandfather, and through that, I was actually able to then find the records of my grandfather, because my great-grandfather, he never changed his name. I don't think he even learnt to speak English, so he just stuck with Carl Tomich. But then there was another thing. Also back in the day, a lot of people lied about their age to join the army. Now, whether or not this is the case, we couldn't find my granddad's details because they had his birth date wrong. So I ended up contacting the embassy saying, these are my great-grandparents, Rocco, and he has a son named Yakov, right? And they moved over here. And they eventually got back to me, and when they came back to me, they said, look, we don't have any records of Jakov Tomich born on that date, but we have records of a Jakov Tomich from the same parents born on this date. So the actual date and month were the same, just the year was different. So I contacted the Croatian embassy. I gave them proof of this, which was supplied to me by the Croatian embassy. I got my records amended, and then eventually that's how I, finally got that last piece of information. Now, that was just my story. There is a lot of paperwork you got to go through. And now, because I have had my father being born in New Zealand, and then my mother coming from England, but then migrating to Australia, and then they got married in Australia, but he lived in New Zealand, and then my grandfather, it's a whole mess. So the documents from New Zealand couldn't be apostilled in Australia because they're New Zealand official documents. So when I had to get the documents sent over, make sure that you get them apostilled in New Zealand before. And they actually offer that service, and it's cheaper than going to DFAT or one of the Department of Foreign Affairs and figuring out that yourself. So be prepared. There's a lot of paperwork, but there are lots of websites out there with some useful information. There are lots of Facebook groups that are very helpful. Also, if anyone has any questions, I'm willing to help, because this has taken me 2 years to compile all these documents: birth certificates, death certificates, marriage certificates, my story, my heritage, and then writing it all in Croatian. So that was fun. But soon, I'm going to become a citizen. So this is very exciting. That will give me the ability to live in Europe anywhere I want. I can buy it in Europe, or I can go back to Croatia and show what a beautiful, beautiful country it is. So if you do have any questions, please write in the comments below. Let's have a discussion, and Did you get your citizenship? How long did it take? I know that after you submit all this paperwork, it is apparently up to about a 2-year waiting process, so it can take some time. I did have a friend that also went through the exact same thing, and they explained to me the process and all the things they went through, and this made it a lot easier. So talking about it and sharing our stories will be able to help other people achieve their goals. And maybe it's not for you to live there now, maybe it's for you to live there in the future, or maybe it's for your children to live there in the future. Also, just a little side note, a lot of people mention, Carl, why do you have an upside down cross on your chest? This is actually the cross of St. Peter, and St. Peter's Church is actually in the town where my grandfather was born. It does have a little bit of personal significance to my heritage and my story. And no, I am not a Satanist. This is Carl Travels, and keep on adventuring.